If you're here, don't scroll away, because what you're about to read is not just a story, it's a ride through tension, injustice, hidden power, and revelation, and by the end, you'll understand why you should subscribe right now so you never miss stories that twist reality into something unforgettable. Because the tale of the black twins threatened by cops at a bar while being unaware they're both FBI agents is not just fiction, it's a mirror of how society underestimates, misjudges, and often humiliates those who are far more than they appear to be. So hit that subscribe button, lock in, and let's dive straight into the night when everything changed, when the noise of clinking glasses, dim neon lights, and the faint scent of spilled whiskey was broken by the sharp crack of authority misused, when the Davis twins, Marcus and Malcolm, stepped into O'Hara's, a rough, old-school Irish bar tucked at the edge of downtown, a place that rarely welcomed outsiders, especially not too tall, sharp-suited black men whose calm stride and polished shoes carried the subtle weight of something dangerous, though no one in the bar knew it yet, not even the cops who were about to make the worst mistake of their lives, because Marcus and Malcolm weren't just twins. They were both undercover FBI agents whose files were locked so tight that not even local law enforcement had clearance to know, and the night began like any other, with them sliding onto bar stools, ordering bourbon neat, keeping their eyes casually roaming the room while their minds ran tactical scans, trained by years of covert work, and though they looked relaxed, their presence alone disrupted the bar's uneasy silence, causing a few regulars to murmur, and that's when the door banged open and two uniformed cops strode in with the kind of swagger that came not from courage but from unchecked power, their eyes landing instantly on the twins as if they had been waiting for them, and without hesitation, one barked, "It's on the counter, now," while the other rested his hand just a little too comfortably on his holstered weapon, and the bar hushed, the bartender's eyes flicking nervously as though he'd seen this before, the regulars leaning back, smirking, expecting the usual humiliation to unfold, but Marcus simply raised an eyebrow, sliding his glass aside, while Malcolm gave a faint smile, the kind that suggested both patience and danger, and Malcolm spoke first, his voice calm yet resonant. "Is there a reason for the stop, officer?" And the taller cop sneered, "Reason is you don't belong here, and if I say jump, you better ask how high." And the other officer chimed in, "Don't make this harder than it has to be," and the tension thickened, the smell of sweat and alcohol mingling with something more primal, fear and anticipation, because everyone in that room thought the same thing, that the twins were about to be dragged out, beaten, arrested, or worse. Yet what no one realized was that this was not just another incident of racial profiling. This was the trigger to something much larger, because the FBI's entire investigation into a citywide corruption network was about to unravel right here in O'Hara's. But the cops didn't know, and the twins themselves didn't even know each other was part of the bureau, because years of compartmentalized undercover assignments had kept their identities secret, not just from the world but even from each other. Their childhood bond long fractured after a rough upbringing in the Bronx where their mother had struggled and their father had disappeared, leaving them on different paths that somehow led them to the same agency, both excelling, both becoming top-tier operatives, but separated by secrecy until tonight, and Marcus tilted his head, scanning the badge numbers subtly, his FBI-trained eyes catching the faint irregularity in the stitching of the taller cop's uniform, a detail that screamed fake, while Malcolm, reading the posture of the second officer, noticed the twitch in his trigger finger, the restless scanning of exits, the overcompensating aggression, all classic signs of someone hiding something, and before either twin could respond, the taller cop grabbed Marcus's shoulder hard, yanking him halfway off the stool, snarling, "You deaf, boy. ID, now," and the bar roared with nervous laughter, some patrons egging it on, others shrinking back, but Malcolm stood, smooth and deliberate, placing himself between the officer and his brother, and whispered low, "Don't touch him again," his voice so cold it made even the bartender shiver. Yet the officer pushed forward, his face red with rage, yelling, "What are you gonna do about it?" And Marcus, fighting to keep the situation from exploding too soon, finally pulled out his wallet, but instead of a driver's license, the glint of a federal badge caught the dim neon light, and the entire room froze, the taller cop blinking, his mouth opening then snapping shut, while the second officer's hand jerked away from his holster. But before they could react, Malcolm, stunned, pulled out his own badge, revealing the exact same thing, and for a brief second the twins just stared at each other, their world tilting, childhood memories colliding with present reality, their secret lives unraveling in one shared glance, and the bar erupted in whispers, disbelief rippling like wildfire. But the real twist wasn't the revelation. It was that the fake cops weren't shocked by the badges. No, their eyes narrowed, their faces stiffened, because they already knew, and that's when Marcus realized. These weren't real officers, they were plants, corrupt enforcers in disguise, working for the very cartel he had been tracing for months. The same cartel Malcolm had been investigating under a completely separate operation, and suddenly everything made sense, their paths converging, the reason fate had brought them here, and the fake cops lunged, trying to grab the badges, trying to silence the exposure, but the twins moved like shadows, years of training snapping into motion, Marcus twisting the taller cop's arm with bone-snapping precision, slamming him against the bar, Malcolm sweeping the legs of the second, disarming him in a blink, and the bar erupted in chaos, patrons scrambling, bottles shattering, someone screaming as the twins took control. But the fight wasn't over, because from the back room, 3 more armed men burst out, shotguns raised, and suddenly the bar was a battlefield, neon lights flashing off steel, glass exploding, the twins ducking, weaving, countering with brutal efficiency, using chairs, bottles, and even pool cues as improvised weapons, their coordination uncanny, as though years apart had meant nothing, their twin instincts aligning, each move complementing the other, a silent rhythm of survival and dominance, until the last gunman hit the floor, weapons skittering away, and the twins stood panting, surrounded by groans and broken furniture, the bar in ruins. But the fight had only begun, because sirens wailed outside, real cops this time. Or so it seemed. But when the uniforms stormed in, the twins instantly recognized familiar faces from their case files. More corrupt officers, part of the syndicate, and it became clear that the rot in the city ran deeper than either had known. So deep it infected law enforcement itself, and as they stood back to back, guns drawn now, badges flashing, Marcus whispered, "Looks like we're in this together after all," and Malcolm grinned. About time, and what unfolded over the next 2 hours was a war not just in the bar but spilling into the streets, a chase through alleys, ambushes in parking lots, betrayal by supposed allies, civilians caught in the crossfire, until the twins pieced together the truth. The cartel wasn't just smuggling drugs, they were moving weapons, using dirty cops to guard shipments, and tonight's confrontation was no accident. It was a planned elimination. The cartel had learned that federal agents were onto them and sent their imposter cops to silence the threat, but instead of silencing, they had awakened a storm, because the Davis twins, reunited by chance, were no longer just agents. They were brothers with unfinished business, and as dawn broke, blood on their suits, smoke rising from burnt-out cars, and the cartel's local network dismantled, they sat side by side in the back of an FBI transport van, still catching their breath, still processing the impossible truth that they had both been living double lives, hunting the same enemy, and though the city saw only destruction and scandal, the Bureau saw victory, and the twins saw something deeper, the chance to rebuild what was broken, to fight not just for justice but for each other. And as the van rolled past the wreckage, Marcus muttered, "Guess Mom would be proud," and Malcolm smirked, "Proud, yeah, and pissed we wrecked half the city," and they laughed, tired but alive, unaware that the bigger war was still coming, that the cartel's reach stretched farther, that this night was only the beginning of a storm that would test their loyalty, their bond, and their lives. But for now, the world finally knew who they were. Not just 2 black men threatened at a bar, but 2 unstoppable agents who turned the tables, rewriting the rules, proving that underestimation is the deadliest mistake anyone can make. And if you've stayed with me through this wild night, you already know this story is just the start. So subscribe now, because the Davis twins' war is far from over, and the next chapter will make this one look like a quiet drink at the bar.